All right, we're back. Let's start over. Crush, what's up, man? What's going on with
Hey, man.
you?
Yeah, I mean, I was just trying to say before I streamed didn't really hear me, but we're in kind of an interesting transition phase in Heroes Competitive right now. HRCS and CCL are kind of winding down for this phase. NGS and Storm Division are winding up. Heroes Lounge is doing their thing. Unfortunately, I'm not following too much what's going on over there. I know X Cup's going on, but I think it's interesting just, being able to follow multiple things. It's not like we're just in a dead season for Heroes. There's plenty of stuff to follow right now, and it's really cool.
Absolutely, absolutely. And obviously, I said what's up to the two young guys. You guys heard what I had to say. Again, Slug, thanks for being here. Dynouh, thank you for being here. I appreciate that. This is an early stream for us, NA folks. Like, I'm still groggy, but we're making this as EU friendly as possible. But no, really excited for today's show, and I'm excited to hear what you guys got to say about the season, the meta, what you guys want to see in the future. You guys are the future. Let's be real. You guys will be the ones that are going to be leading Heroes competitive for a while, assuming you guys want to stay here. There's a bunch of old crusty farts up, that you guys have been hanging around with for a little bit, kind of learning from. But to be completely honest, I think that. A lot of the big changes, a lot of the things that will propel competitive heroes esports forward is going to come from guys like you. So I'm excited to have you here. But before we get into that, Crush, you got any questions for these guys?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a really exciting playoff specifically for both of your teams. Starting with SlugHunter, did you feel like at the start of the playoffs, did you feel like Wildheart was going to get as far as they did? Did you have any sort of inside knowledge that one team was going to go further than the others, that the standings didn't really tell the story?
I wouldn't say that we were like sure of where we were gonna end up. Our main focus was beating Simplicity that first weekend to guarantee the second weekend of play. Um, and then one that we accomplished, and then after that, it was like we're just gonna try to do like as best as possible. But overall, I mean, I was generally happy with how things ended up. I wish I played better in certain instances, but at the end of the day, I mean, I can't really complain too much about my first season in the league getting third. So
It's a decent spot to be. I mean, being top four is not easy. Looking at these CCL teams, like, there's different, we've seen the different tiers of teams that come on through, and top three is absolutely respectable. Um, for Dynouh, just sort of in the position that 30K has been in all season, just sort of at the top, not too, not too much was standing in your way. In that sort of position, does it become any more difficult to stay motivated or prepare for opponents when you feel like there's no one that can touch you at that top spot?
Um, Funnily enough, I think we got really lucky about that because we did drop one game throughout the season against Storm, and I mean, yeah, before that I thought we were untouchable, we were like unbeatable, but after that series, we were not. We were a bit shaky at some points, and after that we started taking the scrims far more serious again, prepare way more for the games, and propelled us forward again.
Okay. Yeah, because it's sometimes it's tough when when you aren't tested like that to stay serious. So it's interesting to hear that the Storm series really brought the team back into focus there, and it absolutely came through in the end. I mean, 4-0 finals kind of speaks for itself there. Really, really nicely done. And just moving that right into the awards ceremony was basically just 30K all day. Did you feel like, if say we were going into those awards and they said, okay, 30K is not going to win any of the awards there, were there any other players sort of on your radar that you felt like, they're definitely like a most improved, they're definitely a best, off lane? Were there any other standouts in the league that you saw, or do you feel like it was just 30K all the way?
You're starting off with you're giving me a lot of space to be toxic here.
Hey,
Um,
go do your thing, man. It's not
So-
toxic. It's real.
so there are definitely some players that have threat not just the way they play, but also in draft alone. I think the easiest example to name is Ritsu with Zarya. Like, a lot of people have to respect it, or you have to think about it in draft, and you have to think about how you want to play into it if you really want to not ban it out.
Yeah.
So if it would not have gone to Hazu, I would expect Ritsu
Okay.
to be that player in the flex position. For tank, it's hard to say. I feel
Well,
like
tank was a tough thing this season, right? Like there were some teams that just straight up ended up without a tank player. Is there that much of a divide between the most experienced tanks and the ones that are picking it up right now in CCL?
I want to say that the tank role is being dominated by European tanks.
Okay.
The ones that I'm thinking of are Benny, Lauber, and Masquerade, but I think all of them can be very into you.
I was gonna say I think the Lauber one's copium, bro. That's,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
cap. That's cap. Let's be
And-
real.
and Tremor, for example, or I want to mention Red Robot as well. Especially after when he left Oxygen and went over to Granite, he had some insane moments where he nearly 1v9s games with his Diablo, like where he just sees the picks or whatever. Like, I don't know, tank looks rather even.
Okay.
It's hard to name a player there. Yeah.
Do you think?
Okay.
Do you think? Sorry, this is like we're kind of dipping into. I won't go too far into this, but do you think that's just a? And this goes to both of you. Do you guys think that this is an issue with the balancing right now and how like tanks? I feel like tank heroes are almost like kind of useless right now. Is that fair to say?
I don't think I said they're useless. I would say that the tank role in general is just probably, it's like really difficult because you have to like know where you should be, and you have to be really good at playing off vision and being able to just not do things. I think a lot of players can't get into that mindset that like it's okay to kind of just like sit around in bushes and just have vision. Like a lot of players want to hit waves, so a lot of players want to like hit things. They want to like be doing things on the map. Otherwise, they feel like, you know, well, I'm not doing anything. I'm not adding anything of value. But just even by just like sitting off map, you're like adding so much pressure. And I mean, I think they're like tanks like Diablo. I think Diablo was a really good example this season, who in some games is just 1v9s. It can just take over. It's like unkillable, and you know, just has a lot of utility as well.
Are there a lot of
Yeah.
opportunities for the like counter picking in terms of tanks right now? Because it feels like in a lot of games the tank is the primary kill target, and that tends to lean towards certain tanks you just can't end up picking. Like we barely see ETC at all. You know, Mal'Ganis we can't really see. Even Mei, as you know, defensive as of a tank that she is, feels killable right now. Is that a product of the patch, or is that a product of just the prevailing play style of the professional teams right now?
I think it very much depends on what a draft, first of all, what a draft the team is going for, and then how they execute it. Yes, designing a draft that is designed to kill a frontliner is usually the easiest to play, because then you don't really have to get creative. It's just the most straightforward thing you can do. But I doubt it's an issue with the tank pool or with the heroes. It's more just a lack of creativity on some teams.
I feel that.
Okay.
I feel that. Yeah.
I can agree with that.
Nice. Right on. Okay. And we'll dive into that a little bit later. But real quick, Dynouh, what? Tell us a little bit about your journey leading up to become a CCL player. What's your competitive background? How many years have you spent playing this game? How did you start? Where did you and how did you end up? I guess essentially on 30K, what was that process like for you? The lore.
So I have played games since forever, and I've always been tryharding in every game, and I've always trying to win in every game. And when I tackled Heroes of the Storm, I just played a lot of solo queue or team league with friends, and we got into Heroes Lounge for one season. We managed to win Division 1, and then right after we disbanded because I was a bit too demanding.
I feel that.
Or like I had way too much energy.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean. Like, you enjoy playing with your friends and stuff, but then your friends like,
Yeah.
bro, we're just trying to chill. And you're like, I can't chill. I'm trying to win, And
Yes.
it kind of creates a little, and you're still friends. You just maybe don't play with them as much anymore. That happened to me. I think that happens to a lot of competitive players.
Yeah. Then right after that, I streamed a lot, and soon after, I got asked by a team called Feel the Heat back then. That was with X-Ray, Wit, Taloof, and Kolyos. And they needed a sub player, so they asked me. And the first like real competitive games against like names like the likes of Hazuops or Lauber, they stumped me. Like we went with a draft with the heroes that I can't play. I only knew how to play 2 or 3 heroes. Like I was an OTP back then, and that was slowly the beginning. I didn't remain a sub. I became the core player because the player that I was subbing for apparently had some issues with the team. And slowly but surely, I continued playing. I learned more heroes, got more confident. And that's how, and that's also how I ended up in CCL. Just smooth sailing from there on out, kind of. It wasn't smooth, but
Yeah.
yeah.
So you just grinding your way up. People took notice. Hey, this guy's good. This guy's winning. You played in those things, and lo and behold, you're tearing it up in Storm League and stuff too, right? Like your Grandmaster and all that, and those are things that people notice, right? There's a lot of people that ask me like, how do I become a CCL player? Like what do I need to do? And it's like, just gotta play the game, and you just gotta play the game and just be good, just be a good player. I don't know how else there are avenues to get to that point. Follow these avenues and go from there. But yeah, right on. Cool. Slug, tell people a little bit about your story, your background.
I fall in a similar category. I've played games forever. I've always loved video games. I was never insanely competitive, really, until I got to HOTS. And then I started playing around like mid 2017. They had if anyone remembers, like TNG Squadron. And those people, they had a little tournament they'd run every week called Slugfest, and I played in a bunch of those. And then I was like, wow, this is really fun. I started looking at like amateur div. I ended up climbing, at the time I was like flat, and I ended up climbing up to masters. I'm like, okay, maybe I'm, decent at this game. And I played on a couple amateur teams before Open Div started in 2018, but never really got that into it or felt that good at it. And I ended up managing a team, King's Gambit, who made it into the it's Crucible. That's it. And they almost made it into not CCL, HGC. And after that, I managed another amateur team. I'm trying to remember the name. I can never remember the name. It had like Liam, Shot. I can't remember. There are other players. My brain is so foggy during that time because I was like mentally kind of just like almost out of it. Like I was just like not very happy with where I was in life. And I was just like, I'm kind of doing this. I wasn't really enjoying it that much. And I took it, which had nothing to do with them. They were great players. Um, and I took a break for a bit, and then Yit Boss messaged me, the manager of Octalysis, and was like, "Yo, I need some help. Uh, just can you like take care of scheduling and stuff?" And I was just like, "Okay, sure." And I started hanging out with those guys as well, and I learned a lot just by being around HGC players. So I've had kind of that knowledge for a bit, and I've been around the scene a bit. I also got to meet people through that, so people already knew me. And I took, after HGC died, I took like basically a 2-year break from anything competitive in HOTS. I at one point stopped really playing the game for like 6 months, and then Hogger came out, and I'm like, well, I got to try this thing. And then I started to notice CCL was a thing, and I noticed Wildheart was a thing, and I'm like, all right. I mean, I knew you back in the day, Goon. Like, you know, we talked a bunch. I considered you a good friend, so I was like, oh, this is cool. He's running an org now, and I'm like, I look at the players, and I'm like, you know, I see Justin, Bud, Zergling. I'm like, dang, like I've worked with all of these players before, so I'm like, I love this team. And you know, as I watched more, I saw Unaverted and Funds, and I'm like, all right, these are cool players too. We got to talking, and I started doing social media stuff for Wildheart for a bit, for like the rest of that season. And I started hanging out with the guys, started playing some games with them. And then season 2 of CCL, the manager kind of, the manager that they had stepped back, and Goon asked me like, "Hey, do you want to do this? You know the guys, you've already got connections with them. You know, maybe it's just easier for them." And I'm like, "Sure." So I did that. I had a great time. Played a bunch after like scrims and stuff with Unaverted, and I got a lot of game knowledge from that. I got a lot of practice. And I was playing support for a while, and then after that I was like, okay, maybe I want to try competitive again. I played on Wild Heart Omega for an NGS season. Really enjoyed that. I played support, and then I kind of made a joking comment about, you know, it's like where he said something about, you know, every support main has like that one offlaner they play, and I joked I was a Rel main, and they'd seen me play it before in Storm League, and I got a message. I can't remember if it was from Zerg or where, that was like, hey, kind of have had like several offlane tryouts, and there's only one that's looking that good right now. So do you want to just try out for it? Like, we'll give you like 3 days. Figure out how to play the role. No, I mean, I Zerg gave me a lot of tips very early on. Just be like, hey, look for this, try to do this thing. And then tryouts were going well, and yeah, it ended up here. So I just, to some degree, got a little lucky with just who I knew, but you know,
Yeah,
it wasn't all luck.
Yeah, yeah, I would say luck with who you know, but more importantly, you're a gamer. Yeah, I say like, hey, Slug's a gamer. He knows how to play the game. He knows how to push his buttons pretty good, and he's someone that knows how to learn and can learn quickly. And that was something that the guys and I had talked about. It's just like we have all these other tryouts, but this is someone that we think we can work with, and that's going to POG essentially, and we know it's going to be 110%. And to see you go from a support main to an off lane in the top 3 in the CCL, that's a big deal, man. That's good stuff there.
I mean, just sort of following up on that, Slug. So you had a lot of experience, you know, not just playing with these players in the past, but just being around them in general. How much of that, you know, just picking up knowledge here and there from just being friends with people, were you able to turn into sort of mechanical prowess and teamwork, where, you know, stuff that you couldn't pick up by just slamming SL games?
One thing that I've generally been good at, but it also helped that I was around these teams a lot, is I have, I'd say, generally better comms than a lot of players. I'm very good at communicating for the most part. I've always just been like, I communicate my cooldowns generally, and I do it less so on offlane actually than on support. Support I called a lot of cooldowns. Offlane I call more of like what I'm looking at and like calling kind of what I'm gonna do more than anything else. But a lot of time, like offlane, I know some offlaners like struggle with constantly calling like where the enemy offlaner is and tracking them, and then trying to play the game, which is difficult. I mean, it took me a bit to get used to as well, but I had the knowledge of like information, and giving information to your team is really important. And I could see from like an observer perspective when someone didn't call something and how it impacted the game afterwards. So I'm like, this is very important. And a lot of it, my game knowledge still wasn't incredible, because a lot of times when I was watching, when I would watch like the team I was managing, I would have a hard time kind of thinking about it critically, because I was mostly thinking about it in a more emotional sense. I was more just like, we're winning, we're losing, we're like, I wasn't thinking like, this is what we should do, this is what we shouldn't do. It's just like, I am just like, you know, I just felt more along for the ride. And then I kind of had to take a certain, you know, when I played NGS the season before CCL, I definitely realized like my game knowledge wasn't there as much as like where people should be on the map, where I should be on the map. And Wary helped me with that a lot in NGS. He actually would, I'd ask him like, hey, can we look over like a replay or two? And we go over like 4 replays and just be like, hey, try to like be around this person, try to be in different spots. You should look for things. You shouldn't always be like, AFK on support. You should be actively looking for things. Like if I'm like Uther and stuff, it's like, if you like, it also changes on characters. Like I was playing Anduin, and it's like you can't really look as much for stuff on Anduin. It's like on this map or this map, it's like it's better try to have something where you can do your own thing. And kind of just by being around those players and letting them, and kind of just trying to soak all that information in, it really helped me to adjust to how the game is played on a higher level. Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of overall was like the best part of being around those guys for a while.
Yeah, because I mean, one thing that you saw on Reddit for, however long this game's been out, is players coming through, they want to learn the game and they want the guide. Like, give me the guide to play Heroes of the Storm. Like, there's one central location where you're going to get every bit of knowledge about how to be a GM in this game. But from what you've described, it's a lot of you learn one thing from one person, and you learn another thing from another person, and you're just kind of cobbling all that together. Dynouh, do you feel like that's been your experience as well in terms of coming up in Heroes?
In general, if you try to become better, yes. I mean, in Heroes of the Storm, it's a very nuanced game. There are a lot of different things you can look at, and yes, it's true. You just learn bit by bit. Like, there is not one grandmaster in the video game that is only good at mechanics, only good at team fighting, but is absolutely terrible at rotating, doing camps, or positioning, or whatever. It's just not true. It's always a balance. A silver player is maybe equally bad at everything, and a gold player is just slightly better at team fighting. And a platinum player is then better at team fighting and better at, I don't know, rotations. It's, you pick these little things up piece by piece. It's, yeah.
And I think that's an important thing for a lot of up and comers to hear is, you might only learn 1 or 2 things in a particular situation or from a particular person, but you got to keep reaching out and finding, the people who are really good at one thing, and eventually you've cobbled together a skill set.
Yeah. And just, the playing the game straight up, the sheer amount of games that, it will require, that it will take to really solidify what you've known, what you've learned. You have to you soak it in, then you have to put it into practice, and then be able to look at it objectively without flaming your teammates every single time, or whatever the case may be. But well, yeah, right on. Cool.
If I could hop on that real quick, just that little thing you said at the end. I think one of the most important things for climbing and getting better at the game is being able to focus on yourself. I see this so much where people will focus on their teammates in Storm League and stuff. Like, the best time, like when I'm playing Storm League and trying to do stuff, I fall into the same trap sometimes, so I just get frustrated. It became like, it becomes harder to play then. Like, you just, when you're playing, you have to play for your own self, like, improvement. You can't be playing like, oh, look at what my Vala's doing. It's like, here, it's like, you can't control this. You can't, like, stop your Vala from inting. You can look at like what can I do on the map to like kind of even out what's happening right now. You have to look at like what you can do, what you could have done that game that you lost. You know, you didn't play perfectly. You like there's always something you can improve, and I think focusing on yourself is just incredibly important in that scenario.
Gotta agree.
Absolutely.
I wanna touch up on the last bit you said about playing perfectly as well. There is no perfect in a game like Heroes of the Storm. It's always nuanced. If you have 4 inters, playing perfect might not mean trying to play normally as a team, because that is what would be perfect in a, I don't know, better team environment. In that game, it's better to, well, try to fix the mistakes your teammates are doing if it's not soaking, or I don't know. It's very, very liquefied the term.
Yeah,
perfect.
it's very fluid.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Very fluid. So yeah.
That's so true. That's so true. I'm glad you brought that up there. Yeah. Right on. Cool. All right, let's go ahead and move into that was just the introduction. Yeah, we got some more meat here on the plate. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the CCL. You know, we touched a little bit, you know, on some stuff. We asked some questions here and there. Obviously, 30K are the champions. They finished. What was the record? What was your record, Dynouh? Let's see if you know what it is.
Total wins and losses, or what?
Yeah.
I've heard the number so many times, but I kept forgetting. Like 29 and 8.
29 map wins and 8 versus the 8 losses. Right on. Okay. I don't know. I was seeing if you knew what it was. It was 30K on top. We had Simplicity second place, Wildheart third, and then Storm came in fourth. And then you're gonna have to go look on Google Wikipedia the rest of the losers below and find out where they placed. So that's where I'm at with that. But no, it was pretty cool season, and you know, I was surprised at the. I brought this up the last time we had the show with Baja and Justin. Storm's performance through the gauntlet was like, oh shit, they're pretty explosive. They're coming in here and they're trying to show what's up, and then they get into the top 4, and then it's a completely different ball game. It made me think, was the bottom half teams that bad, or is the difference? I mean, that bad that Storm can crush them like that, or is the top 3 in a, like, are they, do they just have Storm's number in that playoff, or did Storm maybe not show up with the same strength? Like, what do you think happened there? I'm curious to know what you guys think about the bottom teams versus the top teams, and if there really is such a strong disparity between the players, or if people just have bad days most of the time. Loaded question, I know. Go.
SlugHunter?
I would say that there's definitely a decent disparity between, I mean, definitely certain teams. I would say the bottom 2 teams, for sure, there was not a lot of competition in those games. Oxygen and Diamond Hands, I think... I'm going to be honest, I was kind of surprised Diamond Hands... I expected that series to be closer between them and Storm. Just because I thought Diamond Hands could pull some stuff out, and kind of... Diamond Hands was really good at bringing, like, their own flavor to the game. They were good at bringing out, like, the thing that would make them win. And then in that series, it just kind of felt like they weren't playing their game. They were just kind of playing the game. So I wasn't as sure on that one. I think Oxygen felt kind of meh this season overall. They weren't super impressive or like super terrible. They were just kind of there. And then Storm, I mean, the thing is, we never got to verse Storm throughout the season. It's kind of hard for me to gauge where Storm was at. We got to scrim them, but that's not the same thing. I mean, playing them in a match, I was kind of hopeful we'd get to do it in playoffs, but apparently it was not meant to be. I feel like they just felt kind of high variance. I feel like the way they play the game is they're very aggressive, and that can lead to a lot of like volatile games where there's just fighting constantly happening. And then if that's not going their way, it kind of snowballs in its own sense to just really not be in their way. And I think Simplicity and 30K handled that well enough for that series, for those series.
All right. Pretty interesting what you say about
Okay.
Storm being aggressive. I want to tackle on that first.
Okay.
I think they are very, very defensive. Like, they are the team that play double support almost all the time. And if they go for standard, I mean, then it's standard, but it will not involve like dive heroes. Then my opinion about how you can maybe group the teams, yeah. Like, there's for sure, I think, a lower group in the middle, and group at the top. And I think the overall standings the CCL ended up with is kind of accurate. I think the only oddball is Storm. I am pretty sure they shouldn't be fourth. I am 100% certain they were just inting it in playoffs. I know for a fact they can be very spicy and disgusting in draft, but they didn't show up at all.
Why do you say that? What about their? You said they didn't show up. In what way do you think?
So
what was limiting them?
clear. I mean, obviously, I'm not playing in Storm. I don't know what's going on in
Sure.
their head and their comms or whatever. But I know for a fact that Rutsu is a disgusting player. In a good way, of course.
Right.
Like the hero pool he has, and how well he can, or well enough he can play these heroes. Like, he can totally spice up the drafts, but he never picked any of the heroes he can actually play. All you could see him on was Tychus, Zarya, and I don't even remember anything else. And those heroes are the most telegraphed heroes that exist in the game. And they are so not aggressive. Which I agree would fit their style, but that's not what they played.
I think when I say that they're aggressive, they just kind of just like people sprint at you everywhere, even though their comp may not necessarily be designed in the best way to be people sprinting, but they were always just kind of like, let's just run over here and try to get this guy, and then they would run over there and try to get that guy, and then just die. I was like, okay, that was kind of weird, but that's an interesting. So you think that Rutsu was being limited there? Who was drafting for that team? Do you guys know? I'm curious. Maybe I should get one of the Storm guys on here at some point.
I thought it changed at some points throughout the season, but I feel like I think I agree with you. I think it was Rutsu.
And in season 2 it was KP,
Yeah.
but that was before
True.
Rutsu was in the game, and I mean KP was aggressive. He was fun to play against. But yeah, Rutsu. I think he's the current drafter, or yeah.
Interesting. You gonna say something, Crush? My bad.
Well, I was just thinking about, how the drafting sort of fit in with how Storm performed through the gauntlet versus in the playoffs. And, of course, going up against those top teams, you want to, your drafts change up a little bit. Maybe they catch you off guard. Maybe your standard strategy doesn't work anymore. But did anyone get the feeling watching Storm that they kind of outdrafted themselves in certain spots, and it just seemed like they were trying to be too reactive instead of leaning on the style that had got them to where they found themselves?
Go ahead, Dynouh. Go ahead.
All the time. For anyone that doesn't know, I was co-casting with Hazuops. the games and with Benny as well, and I was constantly bringing up the lack of certain heroes like Tracer in the draft. She's a cheat hero, and I know that Storm Rutsu can play it, and Storm didn't pick it once in the playoffs. They did it in the gauntlet against Diamond Hands, I believe, or Oxygen. Like he showed the Tracer, he can play it, but in the playoffs where it matters more, against Simplicity, he didn't pick it once, or against us, didn't pick it once.
Yeah, I mean, it was just sort of the general feeling I got from, Storm in the Gauntlet versus Storm in the final playoffs, because it felt like their drafting got a little spooked, and I don't think it worked in their favor.
Yeah, it's hard when you come like when you're going through the gauntlet. You're gonna smash. You're gonna smash some teams, man. Like let's just be real. Some of those teams are just free at the end of the day. You go through, you smash them, and then some teams you might have to actually start to draft against, and you start revealing things, and maybe they were worried about they had revealed too much, and maybe they wanted to play a little bit more standard. Maybe they felt like that style, whatever they were doing before in the gauntlet, wasn't going to work in the playoffs because these teams are just better than those teams. Maybe that's a factor, that mental game. But again, it's hard to say without talking to one of those guys here, and but it is something I would like to find out. I mean, is that something that you guys ever think about in your games? Like, we can play a certain way against these other teams. We can draft whatever's fun and we think is going to work and is, one way against, for example, Oxygen. Can we draft that same way against Simplicity or Wildheart or 30K or, whoever? Go ahead. I don't care, whoever.
SlugHunter.
I mean, it's definitely different in each team.
Mm-hmm.
Like, drafting against them is for sure, like, the way... we definitely felt it the first week of playoffs because we spent most of our prep time on Sim. So we kind of knew, like, everything they were going to do. And then we went into the 30K series, and we were like, we know general tendencies, but we hadn't done, like, as much time trying to think of, like, comps that work against them. So, like, going into the second... week of playoffs, we had more plans for Storm, but we'd also then spent less time on Sim, and I think Sim adjusted better, and Sim played. I don't know. They didn't play like unexpected. They just dealt with our stuff better, I guess. But like, it was definitely like drafting against a lot of teams. Like all these different teams is different. Like drafting against like a Diamond Hands is like. You have all these different priorities, and if you have people who are like really good on one hero, so you have like Yasu, who's like I'm like I don't want to play against that Lucia. I'm like I think anything else is technically winnable. I'm like I'm not doing it. Unless you have like maybe very specific things that can deal with it. But if you've got like if your tank is like a Muradin, it's gonna be so hard to play the game because you'll never be able to like get onto the Lucio or anyone else. So generally I would say like trying to get rid of people's comfort and like things that teams generally succeed with is generally really good. Targeting people with potentially lower hero pools was something we did a decent amount during the season. And just playing like overall, trying to make our style work against their style, because we weren't gonna like change styles each week to like perfectly match up against every team. Because that's just not reasonable. Like, especially with a lot of us, this is our first CCL season. We're just trying to make sure we're playing the game correctly more than anything else.
Yeah.
But no, like each team is different. Some teams are just gonna be easier to draft against because they're not as good, so it doesn't matter as much. But against, I'd say like higher tier teams, it is pretty important to like know what you're going up against.
Okay. I mean, we saw a lot. We talked a lot about CCL Season 3. We saw the matchups there. Season 4 announced for this year. Still, we'll learn more about what exactly that means. I mean, the biggest question in my mind right now, especially when it comes to orgs and teams and matches, is what they want to do with the draft. They've been pretty well winding that down as the seasons go on in terms of forcing teams to drop players and pick up new players. Um, as players in the league, how do you feel about, where CCL started in terms of everyone back in the pot and redraft versus you don't have to anymore? Do you feel like one is better for you as players?
So preference-wise, or
Yeah, like say
yeah,
you got to make the rules for season 4. Like, do you just give me my team back, we'll go again, or do you want to try to like mix it up and form something new?
either one or the other. Like I think doing a hybrid is weird. What they did in season 2, where you just have to drop 2 players. I think that was the weakest or the most weirdest decision. I mean, both have the perks. Like either you keep your team or you don't force drop players, so you can continue on what you have built upon already. I mean, that is for the players, I think usually the best. It's also the most secure. Like if you know the rules are okay, you maybe have to drop a player or two. It might play a role in your mental in a way. Yeah, the other option is full redraft. Back to season 1. Have the orgs actually drafts meta, and then the teams are going to be the most balanced as well, kind of.
They should be. They should be the most
Or like
balanced.
in theory, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, in theory, but I mean, like I'll just be real. I mean, there's 3 seasons where Grant is just at the bottom, so like, hey, they draft what they want, so they end up where they're at. You know, like if you change the draft to help accommodate the bottom teams, but they keep shooting themselves in the face, like what's the like what do you do?
I mean, what does CCL do against it?
Hey, I told you I get spicy, bro. I told you I get spicy.
Well, it's interesting because some players, like it's nice to be able to follow a team. You recognize the players, you see their story over time, and then it's also exciting to just not always have the same hierarchy. But like Kuhn said, sometimes there's an innate issue in an org. Maybe they're not investing enough in player development. Maybe they're not investing enough in coaching. Or maybe they just get mad unlucky in the draft, like who knows. But I don't know, like at this point I feel like I don't think CCL teams are like stale at all. I'd be totally fine if they went season 3 rules again. If you want to drop people, that's fine, but if you don't, that's fine as well. I think that'd be fine for season 4. I don't think I'd prescribe that ad infinitum or anything, but I don't think we're at a point right now where it's an immediate issue that teams would stick together.
Would you guys rather stick together with your teams, or would it be more fun or interesting or whatever for a full redraft? What do you guys get? Like, give me your personal
short
opinion.
answer. I would rather stay with the team I'm with currently. I mean, I had a great last season as far as like I had a lot of fun. There are other players I would say that I'd want to play with, and I'd want to get that chance. For me, it kind of just comes down to like, do you want this league to be a thrown around, hey, pick the best players you can? Because if it's a redraft, like every time, you're just going to pick the best players. You're not going to pick for development of players. Like, you're not going to pick people who are like, yeah, I think we can get them to a good point this season, but then the following season, they could be in a really great spot, and they could be almost a long-term investment. Like, this season for us, like, we have players who we're going to need to work with. I mean, myself mostly. I was definitely the biggest one trying to adjust, and I'm like, it feels like an investment for me as well then. Like, hey, I'm going to play this season. I'm going to do my best. I'm going to learn as much as I can. And then next season from the get-go, I'm at this point with this team. You know, we have this synergy and we can see how far we can take it now. So for me personally, I would like the ability to stay where I'm at. But I wouldn't necessarily be fully against the redraft because it could be fun. I could see it.
Some people,
It's the coin flip, right? Like, it might turn out great and it might not, you know.
Yeah,
Maybe you end up getting to stay with Wildheart and there's 4 other new players on there, who knows. If I had to decide today, I think I like the stability option. But I mean, the people running it are going to know what they think is best for the league going forward, what's going to happen in 2-3 seasons. So we'll have to see what their plans are and how it plays out.
yeah, some people in chat talking about relegation and stuff like that, and bringing that in. That's spicy.
Yeah.
I didn't go that far, chat. That's you guys.
I mean, to
I
do
just
that
don't
you
think it's
have to
feasible.
run.
Yeah.
To do that, you have to run 2 leagues. You have to have a lower league. You can't just be like, okay, you're out, and we'll send out a survey to see who wants to join. Like, it doesn't really work that way.
Right.
So when we had open div with HGC, they were running 2 leagues, so you could switch teams between them. But I mean, a couple of people said it in chat, like, we can't just have regen, you know, just whatever 5 players they happen to be rolling with, they're ready to go in CCL. It's just the league's not set up that way. So it's tough to run it that cutthroat in terms of, you know, 7 and 8 are no longer orgs anymore. It's not really an inviting setup to getting people to invest long term in your league.
True. That's all. That's true. That's true. That's how I feel about the relegation right now. Anyways,
I also would say, like, it's like if you're saying another org came in, like if they already had players, a lot of the amateur teams right now, it's not the same as it was in Open Div. I think Open Div, you had that, like, bottom of HGC, top of Open Div was much closer. I think bottom of CCL, top of amateur is not the same. From when I've played against amateur teams in either scrims or in, like, NGS qualifiers, I think there's a pretty decent gap there as well. So I think relegation is, like, just not reasonable in a lot of ways right now, to be honest.
Dynouh, what do you think? I feel like you got something to say.
Yeah. Big words, SlugHunter.
Go.
So, I mean, it depends what teams you are playing against. I think just to look at some certain players in the free agent list, I think if like certain players go up as a team and go play against, let's say, the lower group of CCL or heck even the middle pack, I think they would have a very decent shot at if there was a way for them to get into the CCL like that, they would get in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
so
I mean, I think the players exist that are on the cusp of CCL that they could put together like an all-star type team. A lot of that talent right now is wrapped up in the farm teams isn't exactly the right word, but your Wildheart Omegas,
Academy
your 30K
teams, yeah.
Violets, your baby Diamond Hands. A lot of them, like, they're developing a group of people who are moving forward together, which is kind of one way.
yeah.
There's also the, CPX grabs 4 of his favorite buds and goes and, sees how he fares against Granite Gaming, that sort of thing as well. Those things happen in Storm Day, they happen in HRCS, so those teams can be really powerful at the same time. So would they perform well if they had the proper structure to compete? Probably. Is anyone going to be able to support that kind of tournament structure? Maybe. I mean, we're developing these tournaments here and there. Maybe it turns into something more consistent and bigger, but it's just, I don't know. We'll have to see how the things that we're working on now as a community in terms of competition develop.
Right, and contextually, like we're more. There's 3 North American guys here. I did catch, I've been catching the X Cup stuff, and I see some some stops happening there, and it's kind of like the same thing. I would assume in EU, but do you think that the EU amateur scene is are they close? Are they on that cusp to being competitive?
Depends what team you would be comparing them with.
Okay. Drop names.
Okay.
You don't have to drop names. I'm just kidding. I just want to.
I mean, basically, if you have Granite Gaming, I mean, Granite Gaming as of now, the players that are playing Granite are not even playing X Cup or anything European tournament related.
They haven't been playing the game. I mean, let's just be real.
Yeah, I mean, easily the amateurs of both regions could totally smack Granite if they try hard enough, or if Granite is. I mean, it's also kind of rough. Like, I don't want to down talk Granite too much. Like, I know
Sure.
they can actually be good.
Yeah.
If they play the game more, if they practice more, if they take it more serious, or like the highs they have in certain games sometimes, what they pull off, mind blowing how good they can be. Like, I'm scared. Like if they would manage to do the stuff they do, they did consistently, they're one heck of a scary team. But I don't. But to the original question, I mean, yeah, there are certain players that can definitely. Like, again, there's like this top group. I think they are untouchable. But like, if it comes to middle group and bottom group, and certain players that are not playing competitive yet, or just amateur or whatever, I think there's a lot of leeway.
Sure. And it's funny because like you said, you know, the top of the amateur scene can totally take on the bottom of the CCL teams, and this was something that we saw even in the HGC days, right? Your open division teams coming in and being able to keep up with those bottom HGC teams, but then when it came to competing with those at the top, it was like there was no competition. You had like an even bigger split, an even bigger gap, you know, between those teams, and you almost have this huge disparity in the league itself, and in the and between the amateur scene, that it's like almost. It feels like the game kind of like after a while it starts to like suffocate, and that's just me though, you know. How do you then bring the competitive gap at the highest levels of play closer together? Obviously, the amateur, there's a lot that's going on in there you got to figure out and get up, but keeping the highest levels of competitive play closer together seems to be a much bigger challenge right now than, or it has been a big challenge across all esports. What are some of the things that you guys think would be helpful to help bring that gap a little bit closer?
So, I think the biggest thing on the horizon for fixing what could be described as a motivation issue amongst players at the top of the game, players nearly at the top of the game. I think if we hear more about the LAN event that could be happening in Minnesota, like, the prize pool is good. We've raised a ton of money in CCL. It is a motivator, but it's still kind of intangible in that way. I think if Heroes Hearth comes out in the next couple months and says the LAN is a go, we have the space, if you're in CCL, you are going to be playing there. I think that's a massive motivator for people not only on teams currently, but who are trying to get in for Season 4. I think that would spark a ton of development and reigniting passion that maybe, you know, some teams, some players have been lacking, and, you know, visibly lacking the last couple seasons.
Do you guys agree with that? SlugHunter, what do you think?
Time, because my motivation this season was I just wanted to like do well. Like, I don't know, I just wanted to do like as best I could. I literally didn't think about the prize pool till after it was like done or anything like that, like any extra awards, anything. I really just wanted to play the game and have fun playing it with friends and try as hard as I could. And that like it's hard to kind of describe. Like, if there were more money in it, would I be more motivated? Probably. But considering like this season, I really didn't care about like, oh, if we get this, we get this much money. It's like it's kind of whatever either way, because it's not like, I think it's not like an insane, like amount of money to get even at like third or second or first. I think like I'm not complaining. First of all, like I'm happy with it. I do I see it as more in a sense like for fun competition, not like a for fun league, but like I'm competing in this because I really enjoy it, not because I'm trying to like, get money out of it. So unless it would be like, I think, increased like heavily, I don't see that as being a big motivator, to be honest.
That's sort of what
it may be different.
That's sort of what I was thinking in terms of the land, because I mean, at this point, anyone in Heroes isn't doing it for the money. Like, you go get a job, you'll make some money. You're here because you really, really like the game, you're passionate, and you're good at it. Picking up a couple thousand one season, it's great. Go and do a LAN in front of a crowd and creating memories. I think that is probably more of a prize than, the money that you could get out of Heroes of the Storm right now. So that's why I think that potential announcement. I mean, we heard about the Mall of America thing. The rate at which they're building that thing is tremendous. I can't believe they're finishing it as fast as they are. I don't know if it's ready for season 4, but if it is, I think that brings a level of motivation, not just to people who are currently playing it, because they're obviously they're motivated enough to play it right now. But the ones, that just sort of pop in HRCS now and again just to play with their friends, maybe they play a little more often, and maybe that fills out that sort of talent slope that we're seeing right now.
Would a LAN be like Gigapog for you guys? Is that something? I don't know. I don't know anything for season 4, so don't ask me. So.
Oh yeah, of course not. I think it'd be really fun. Honestly, just for the potential of like hanging out with some of the other players, like that. Ooh. That was I thought about going to the Chili Mountain LAN, not as a player though, because I didn't feel like playing in it. I wanted to like meet the other players, if anything, and just hang out with them. I ended up not going just because it's like I didn't really want to spend the money, and then COVID started spiking up, and I'm like, yeah, this isn't really what I want right now. So, but I think it would be huge.
What do you think, Dynouh?
I mean, yeah, LAN is very fun, very enjoyable to people you get to meet. Like, it's not just playing it, like what SlugHunter also just said, like being a viewer, or it's just fine. It's just about meeting the people. Like, especially in HOTS, it's such a small community, kind of. Mm-hmm. Like, if I would be thinking League of Legends, and I don't know, you have a big name like Perks. That is a name to you. If I were to go in a LAN, I would have no way of like talking to him or whatever. It's like the gap is way too big. The community is way too big. Yeah. But in Heroes of the Storm, I think it's very realistic. Even if fans come out to the LAN where the pros are playing as well, and you can just talk to them, it's like way closer.
Yeah.
So in that sense, yeah, and I mean, in that way, it is. I think LAN is definitely a far bigger motivator than it would be more money or whatever. Because as you also already said earlier, it's definitely not about the money. It's way more about just the passion about HOTS and playing it for the people and for fun, and not for the money. Yeah. It's a nice bonus though. Like, nobody's complaining.
Oh yeah.
Get some books, get some pizza, it's, yeah. The money comes in, it's all right.
Buy a couple skins in League, I get it, Right on. What are some other things that we mentioned you guys said a draft or whatever. Either Slug, you said you would rather stay on your team or and whatnot. But what are some other things that you guys would like to see? And this is actually, I'm going to ask this question to you guys. I've been asking this question every week that we do this. Obviously, the development cadence of the game is a little slow. But with that being said, do you think there's ways that the community can get creative enough to kind of evolve competitive Heroes of the Storm without using in-game tools or anything like that? Is it possible for the community to agree on including extra bands, or maybe introducing a different map pool, or whatever the case may be? Is that feasible? Is it viable? And would you guys be?
When you say the community, do you mean like the community as a whole? Or do you mean like community around CCL or like specific
competitive community, the competitive Heroes of the Storm community?
Competitive community. I mean, I think it's doable. I mean, we saw that back in the day with Meta Madness from Caldor, where they would just like be like, all right, this hero's gone, and everyone's just like, okay, they used to do that. I mean, I think it could be fun. Yesterday I talked with some other players about like kind of what we were thinking of next season. And I know one thing is like, I mean, I just love the idea of what if like X and X and X hero, like we just can't play them. Like Rhaegar's gone now, Johanna's gone now, Blaze is gone now. Like, how do certain things like that change up the meta? Because I mean, it just gets stale over time, and you're just like, I've been playing the same game. It's like Rhaegar has a 65% win rate for like forever. I'm like, I'm bored with this. I don't want to do this anymore. And everyone's watching the same thing. So what if like, let's say partway through the season, character high pick rate, high win rate is just high ban rate is just gone. You can't play it anymore. You have something like that. I don't know if it's like good, but it's just just something that comes to mind. And then otherwise, a more reasonable one, I think, maybe. I mean, I don't know like reasonable monetarily, but like more realistic. Maybe adding a 7th player to team, or a 7th role to teams in some capacity. I think that being a 6th player is really good for development if you're willing to like sit in scrims and watch and talk with the other players. I guess teams could already do that if they wanted to. They could have amateur players sit in scrims. They could have them listen in. So it says it was a CCL thing, but it also allows you to be potentially more flexible with like for this series, like we want to run like a bunch of different things that's more in this person's hero pool or something like that. And so I feel like your 6th man right now, you kind of want to be someone who can play like anything. It's just more useful for scrims than anything else.
Yeah.
So maybe that.
What about you, Dynouh? Do you think, what are some things you would like to see? We all think about it. It's okay. It's one of the things that we do. We may not vocalize it, but what would you like to see? Or do you think it's possible? Do you think everybody would be on board to incorporate another band, for example?
I can totally see it happening. I mean, I think it's up to the guys that run the tournaments.
I agree.
If they really want to confirm it with the players, like you can ask them. I'm pretty sure most wouldn't disagree too much. However, I think saying the meta is stale is a bit rude. Now, I will compare it to League of Legends. When you play the Worlds in League of Legends, you play on the same patch for like 2 or 3 months, and sometimes these patches are broken and bad. But even if they are broken, and you have certain champions that completely pop off, or certain items that completely pop off, eventually you will find counters and playstyles that diminish it. And I think in Heroes of the Storm right now, given we have way less practice time, there are counters right now, even to Rhaegar or Johanna or Blaze.
I agree.
And you can draft around them very, very smartly. Yes, they dominate Storm League. And for Storm League, I mean, they are terrible heroes. It just ruins kind of the experience. You have to perma-ban them, or your teammates are going to tilt if you don't ban them. But yeah, for competitive, I don't think it's necessary yet, at least. I think you can definitely draft around it, or abuse it even, because I think Rhaegar and Joe specifically have very, strong weaknesses that you can abuse if you choose to do so.
What might that be?
I mean, I don't want to leak any strats.
Wait. What are you leaking? CCL's over, bro.
No.
You're gonna crush X Cup anyways, right?
I mean, yeah, I don't really care. No, yeah. So I mean, Rega and Joe both, like especially Joe. If you look at it from the tank role, what is the tank supposed to do? Not to clear waves, not to hit minions. It's usually to sit in bushes, anchor, create space, or engage. And Johanna kind of doesn't do all of that. She has Blessed Shield, in theory, to look for fights and force engages, but most of the Johanna players that pick the hero went Falling Sword anyway.
Mm-hmm.
That just... And they want to play for the level 20 or whatever, but man, you play 90 levels before the game. So how do you counter Johanna? Well, you just pick early game heroes that just completely abuse the fact that the tank has no threat. The same threat that Diablo might have, or Varian. Which would go back again to the Tracer, or, you know... That's gonna go a little bit off topic now, but what I did most of the time in the games was split pushing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to do that because I was not... I could see the tank walking up behind me, and I would still get out because it's not a Diablo, but a Johanna with Falling Sword. Like, what is she gonna do about it?
Facts.
It's that kind of stuff.
It's interesting. Like, I have seen some teams go for an early game comp. I just don't feel like it's terribly common anymore. Like, one thing I've seen some teams pull out when they just want to win early is they just go like Uther Kerrigan, and they just, you know, rack up 15 kills in the first 6 minutes of the game, and that's how they snowball to a victory before the enemy team gets 20. Interesting as a way to sort of punish a Johanna. I mean, you've got the Iron Skin. It's kind of a long cooldown, especially in comparison to like an Uther Kerrigan cooldown. But certainly, yeah, there's got to be other ways to extend your lead enough to where the enemy just doesn't get 20, or they get 20 too late.
I like, yeah. I mean, I like what you said there. You got people are saying play for 20. You got 19 levels to play the fucking game. You still gotta do stuff. You still gotta, you know, and I do think that perhaps, you know, people will say that the XP changes and okay, cool, yeah, sure, probably. That ain't going anywhere anytime soon. We gotta get creative with what we have now, right? We have to play the game in a completely different way. And obviously, it's been working for teams like 30K. Dynouh, players like Dynouh, right? Those are the kind of things that you got to be doing in order to push forward. Using that at play for 20, and we win. Copium. How many times have we heard that? From numerous players, from numerous casts, and it doesn't happen. But we keep saying it. Play for 20. Just play for 20. Just play for 20. No, I hate that. I appreciate your perspective, Dynouh, and that's why I brought you on. Because I've seen some of your takes on Twitter, and I've heard some of them lurking around and stuff like that. But yeah, anyways, that's interesting. So you said split pushing, and then Johanna's coming behind you. You're not afraid of that. So then, what is when people say like the meta? When people are discussing what the meta is in your and this is for both of you, in both of your eyes, like. What defines the meta? Oh, it's the most effective tactic, available. Whatever. What cheap excuse at the end of the day are people using to say what the meta really is?
Well, okay. So the way I think of meta, teams do have their own metas, and teams that scrim each other will develop their own metas as well. If you're scrimming the same team a lot, you're gonna end up playing a lot of the same things. Okay. I think for me, the reason I said like the meta feels stale is because I felt like I was stuck on like Blaze most of the season, which is partially like I'm new to this role, but also it was like, I didn't feel like from my position my role was changing throughout the season, which is generally something that I enjoy, and which is not to say like maybe I could have done more to potentially change the way I played the game, or the way like I interacted with certain things. But I think eventually playing the same character over and over again, because it is good, and like it gets stale, and it gets like, I want this character to kind of get nerfed so I can play other things. I think it can potentially change for different players as well, and for different roles. Some players are just better at certain types of characters, which is something I also fall into. I'm better at tankier offlaners than I am at necessarily like damage offlaners, such as like Hogger or Malthael or something like that, where it's a bit more, I guess, spooky to play is the way to put it, where like you have to be a bit more careful. But overall, like, it kind of is just like the way a lot of teams played similar, in the sense a lot of teams prioritized team fighting and less macro, I would say. Outside of a few, 30K being one of them, who was a bit less team fighting and a bit more macro, and it made them a lot harder to play against, because a lot of teams they don't want to just smack, but they would still prioritize picking teamfight comps or picking things that weren't necessarily as good macro wise, because a lot of teams like to play the game that way, which leaves the teams that are better at the other styles are generally going to get ahead, because they're going to be like, okay, we can just take your buildings and then like get you behind on the map, and it's like, well, now you can't team fight because you're always clearing waves, you're always behind on rotation, so it's like you can never get a 5v5 team fight. And like, I've had discussions with people where it's like, well, there always ends up, the game always ends on like a 5v5 team fight, but it isn't necessarily, because if you can just get so ahead off of waves and off of pushing, sometimes you never get like a fair, even level team fight, just out of a comp difference or a playstyle difference.
See that all the time on Alter.
I don't know if Dynouh has this different perspective on that.
No, I think you're pretty correct on it. I think a meta that is dominated by team fighting is a terrible meta, because there is no beauty in it. How to say this?
Ooh, this guy's an anime villain now. He's seen
No.
the beauty. I'm just kidding.
Like a macro comp or like a split push comp should, in theory, always be the better comp if played clean enough. Otherwise, there is no reason to pick that comp to begin with. And as long as they play it clean enough and play and dance around the map and just simply not give the enemy the team fight they are looking for, then they're gonna win. And if they don't manage to do that and give enemies the team fight, then I think it's a healthy dynamic.
Yeah, I mean, when I think of just a baseline definition of what meta is, it's the easiest way to produce consistent results. Playing a macro play style, in solo queue, extremely difficult. You're not in comms. You're trying to guess what your team's doing. It's hard to pull off. Usually the enemy team is equally uncoordinated, so you get away with extra stuff. But in the end, the easiest way to replicate results would be to team fight, because everyone knows about team fighting. It's the most fun thing to do, so it's the easiest thing to coordinate in that situation. You get into 5 stacks, it's still pretty easy to team fight, but now you've got that communication, so it becomes a little easier to try another style and produce consistent results. You get up to CCL at a level like Dynouh Slug, the level that you're playing, to be able to produce a macro play style and have it produce consistent enough results without, having to change your shirt after because you're sweating so hard playing that play style. Like, it's important, the more you're focused on one thing, the less you're talking, the less you're considering options. So you've got to measure those things when you're thinking about when you're going way off meta or something. You're doing like Samuro Abathur strats. Like, it's hard to do, and sometimes the easier thing to do that produces a better average result is easy to fall back on.
Yeah, true. And then my response is get good. Get good.
Well, there you
Learn
go. It's like,
learn the other styles. But yeah.
sometimes you're just so good at one thing. Like I remember last HRCS split, we saw Noah Star on Li Ming playing Li Ming in the weirdest scenarios ever. But he
Yeah,
was just
absolutely.
so much better than everyone else on this hero that shouldn't have done well that it worked out. So if you've just got someone who's an amazing Vikings player, or they're an amazing Alarak, I don't know who's out there busting heads on Alarak these days, but if you can just push past with your skill in one place and beat the meta, so to say, by being consistent in a hard play style, then it definitely shakes things up.
Absolutely. I appreciate the perspectives there. Interesting. Would you guys say? And I don't want to speak. I don't like speaking really. I don't when it comes to like play style gameplay. I at the end of the day, I don't like to speak in absolutes. I don't. But would you say that right now, in the way that we understand the game, playing for a more macro focused style is probably better than the other styles right now? Is that the answer? Is that kind of like the overarching response here that we want to give to everybody? Because at some point, everyone's going to focus. Maybe okay, now everyone starts playing macro, and then all of a sudden you start seeing a rise in the pick comps. Maybe you start seeing the ganks happen again, and the team. Because it should be like an ebb and flow, right?
I mean, the last like 3 seasons of CCL have been won by teams that like to hit buildings. I mean, like they, like people would say like Lutano's a rat because he would just pick Greymane and he would just he'd rat buildings. He'd just run down a lane, and it was similar this season with 30K. I mean, you guys were really good at just you'd pick Sylvan stuff and like we're doing something, it's like objectives are up, and then I see on my mini map I've got a little Dynouh running down here, smacking my bottom building. I'm like, all right, I got to deal with this now. And it's like I'm trying like you, and in that you end up splitting up the other team so that they're not as strong as well. So I think it is a pretty effective way to play the game as far as we've seen currently. I don't know, like. I think part of that is we haven't seen those pick comps. A lot of teams like to play front to back because it's easy. We haven't seen team comps that are more focused on just like playing outside of team fights. So it's a little harder to kind of gauge like, is that the best way to play the game? I don't think there's a necessarily a best way to play the game. I think there's just different ways that beat other ways almost. I think there are ways that can be more like, just because of the way characters are designed at certain points, can be stronger in certain like metas. Almost is like team fighting and macro can be stronger in certain areas because other things are not as strong. So it kind of ends up creating its own small little meta.
Sure. What do you got, Dynouh?
Yeah, what SlugHunter said briefly, it's always like certain comps counter certain other comps.
Sure.
And yeah, the pick comp, I mean, or like the split push comp should in theory get countered by pickup comp. The pickup comp should get countered by a team fight comp, and the team fight comp gets countered by a split push comp. Like that kind of makes sense, and that is why drafting is so important, and that is why I think it can't actually ever get stale, because you actually always have these options available. It's like very rock paper scissors like. But yeah, some heroes are just cheater heroes that are just good at multiple things at the same time. I think Sylvanas is the god at everything. She is excellent at team fighting, split pushing, and playing pick comps. I think she does everything.
Yes.
and that is why I think if you look at Storm League, or if people were to complain about Johanna or Rega, I mean, those are not the strong heroes right now. They are not dominating. Not even specifically their playstyle. I don't even know what their playstyle is supposed to be. Like, Rega is Joa team fighting, I guess, but it's very slow, and usually if you have a team fight comp, it should be good at pushing as well. Like, you want to be strong enough to force enemies to team fight you.
Mm-hmm.
And while Rega is good at pushing, Johanna really isn't. So I don't get what her place in the meta is really should be that much.
So I just wanted to pick up on something you said there about, the rock, paper, scissors of it, the team fight, the split push, the pick. Do you feel like there aren't enough teams and players out there that are thinking about that in their draft style? Or more that are just going, I'm just going to keep getting a bigger and bigger rock until it squishes the paper?
Yes. That is absolutely... That is actually what I think we, or I, struggled with before Season 3, like Season 2 and before. We always played drafts that were very one-dimensional, and it just came to us trying to be mechanically better. And when it didn't work out well, just force it even harder with something else. Like, and never trying to think strategically at how to go about things. And yeah, I think a lot of teams do that right now still. Or players, like, look at, like, I don't know, looking at Storm, what they usually play is standard or double support. They never go for split push. Or Simplicity, I don't know what they were drafting. Like, Mene, usually if the Zagara, sometimes they go for the split push. Or for awkward team fight, awkward pick. I don't know. Yeah. I think that the too many hybrid comps, or not specific enough, or like lack of identity, is what a lot of teams struggle with, I would say.
Yeah, I would agree with that, absolutely. And people are like, man, well, how do you get there? How do you find that out? Hey, start thinking about that in your own games. Start thinking about that in your own teams, and there are some resources out there. I will say, and if you aren't already in the Wild Heart Discord, you should totally join the Wild Heart Discord. There's some stuff in there. But anyways, that's my little plug there. Go out there and be willing to experiment a little bit outside of what you're seeing, outside of the narrative. That's good. That's good stuff. We're breaking the conditioning that whatever. Oh man. But okay, cool. Let's wrap it up here. I'm going to ask you guys one question. I'm going to ask you guys one more question here. What changes would you like to see in the next patch, Copium?
Oof.
What do you want, Crush?
I want them to release new hero, Artanis 2. It's just a second Artanis. That's what I want to see. I need more Artanis in my life. And when they ban him once, I want to be able to pick him still. That's what I need.
Okay, cool. Fair enough. Oh, man. What do you want, Dynouh? What do you think?
While I was glorifying how Rega and Joe are not that dominant, or like are fake dominant, I still think they should be getting nerfed for sure.
Definitely for Storm League. It's menacing in there.
Yeah, but they bait teams into picking them at the wrong scenarios, I think. Mainly because they're just... They fulfill something that they shouldn't. Johanna, for example, deals damage like a rage damage dealer. She shouldn't be doing that.
Right.
And it's... You start playing her wrong in a way, so I would be happy if she gets nerfed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fair.
Get that Johanna out of the off lane, man. It's too much damage.
Truge. What about you, Slug?
I don't think how to put this. I mean, I agree. Like, the things that are strong right now, as far as like Rhaegar and Joe type stuff. as said in the chat by Legacy, I think Tracer could maybe use a little bit of tuning down in certain areas. But I think some of that is also people. I think also people are adjusting to playing against it though. But I mean, I definitely think in Storm League it's like pretty dominant and harder to deal with. Overall, I just generally like when patches shift a bunch of things around. I like to like, okay, like this is strong now. I can start messing with this. I can start like, just changing things up, giving things new talents, giving things new play styles. It's just fun to play newer aspects of the game. So mostly, I'm just hoping for a patch that kind of gives me opportunities to mess around with new stuff that wasn't there before.
Okay. And for me, I've been seeing an influx of Samuro cockroaches in Storm League. I would like to see that hero just not exist anymore. All right, because there's gonna be a day and age where that hero is gonna eke its way into competitive and just ruin everything. So get him out of here. That's what I'm gonna go ahead and say. I'm calling it right now. I've been seeing it, and I know you guys have been seeing it too in your games. It's there. It creeps up and it pops up. It's been happening more often. Get it out before it gets worse.
Replace him with that second Artanis. It'll be great.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that for me. And also, maybe do something with Regar's level 1 totem. I don't think it should be that talent is pretty strong, and I would like to play Monk again and have fun, but whatever. Anyways. Hey, appreciate you guys for being here. This was a very, very awesome episode. You guys shared a lot of good information here. I hope you all enjoyed it as well, and I hope everybody here for the tuning in for the first time enjoyed it as well. We try to do these every couple weeks or so. It depends on what's happening in the community, right? It might slow down a little bit now that CCL's kind of going on a break. There are some amateur competitive stuff still happening. And maybe when a patch drops, we'll bring some other guys on. Maybe we'll bring Slug and Dynouh on and talk about the patch and see what's going on. And make sure you drop a follow. Appreciate all the follows, by the way, Hazu. Thank you for the raid earlier. I don't have notifications on for this sacred time that we have together here. But real quick, any shout-outs, Dynouh? Anything you want to mention? Any last words, final thoughts, hot takes?
Sure. I'm hoping for the next season of CCL that there's going to be a competition in the DPS award, because so far there's none.
Oh, okay. Okay, all right. I like it. I like this guy.
Oh, you've been holding that one the whole day.
Nice. All right, cool. What about you, Slug?
Honestly, just like shout out mostly to as far as like my development, I would say shout out to Wary, Zerg, and Unaverted.
Mm-hmm.
They've been like the most helpful through the last like, I don't know, 6 months at helping me learn the game and having a lot of fun with it. Unaverted, I just played so much with him that I just got better at the game, and Zerg and Wary spent a lot of time with me trying to help me get better at the game, and specifically at the offlane world. So I would big shouts to them. Shout outs to Mason, Trem as well, and Lupus for being awesome teammates. That's pretty much all I can think of. Shout out to Twitch chat, obviously, and shout out to you guys for having us on. It was a real fun time.
Right on. Awesome. Yeah, glad to have you. Crush. What's up, man? What's up with you?
Man, shout outs. I just want to say big shout out to everyone helping run HRCS.
Yeah.
People up top, Goon, Rob, Slexia, Chris, everyone up there who's making this thing happen. The in-game admins have been doing a fantastic job in terms of wrangling all these players together and actually having them start on time. Casters are all doing a fantastic job. I also want to shout out Wedge over at NGS running Storm Division this season. That is harder than it looks to run, and I appreciate his work over there. We're going to be starting that up next week, so make sure you check out all the matches there. And otherwise, yeah, shout out to everyone here. Dynouh, Slug, thanks for coming on in. It's been fun.
Absolutely. Thanks again, guys. Appreciate your time. I really do appreciate it. It's been awesome. I appreciate the perspectives as well. Shout outs to you, Crush, for being here, homie. And shout out to everybody at HRCS, everybody at Wildheart, everybody in Twitch chat. Again, thank you so much. You guys can follow any socials real quick you guys want to throw out before it's done. SlugHunter. Actually, fuck. Let me do this. I forgot to do this. Go ahead, SlugHunter. Give him your thing. And then we'll go Dynouh, and then we'll Crush, and we'll call it a show.
You can follow me at SlugHunter on Twitch, or you can follow me on Twitter at SlugHunter with a 3 instead of an E.
I'll find something.
Pretty much it. I'm not super active on either. Sometimes I stream, sometimes I'll post a random thought or like random dumb thing I come up with. But if you want to see anything I've done, you can go there.
And for me, you can follow me on Twitter, Twitch, and on YouTube, all with the same name. I'm mostly active on Twitch, and on YouTube I'm trying to get some dumb videos up when I get to them.
Right on. And Crush, what's going on tonight, by the way?
Tonight we've got the HRCS finals. I'm with Mockery for the upper finals. Jazzaline, I believe, is with Just Sting for the lower bracket runs. So make sure you come on out for that. As for me, you can find me, the Crushinator, everywhere. I'm on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube. I'm starting to put out short content there. So if you like the shorts on your phone, you can catch them there. I also started simultaneously posting to TikTok. So if that's your, short video app of choice, I'm the Crushinator there too.
Right on. Twitch.tv/goon GGWP. This will be on YouTube at Wildheart Esports. Just YouTube Wildheart Esports. It's going to be on there. Drop a like, drop a follow, a sub there as well. Appreciate you guys. But thanks for hanging out. We're going to go ahead and raid Glaive. He's playing some Storm League right now. Y'all have actually, it's Heroes Lounge. Y'all have a good night. Take it easy. Peace out. Much love, everybody. And we'll see you all next time. Thanks for coming out. Be easy.